And welcome into the Inside Arkansas Postgame Report Card. I'm Curtis Wilkerson alongside Andrew Ellis to go position by position and grade out Arkansas's performance from Saturday's season opening 52-7 win over Alabama A&M in Fayetteville. And folks, our football game coverage here at Inside Arkansas is presented by BetSaracen. It's Arkansas's #1 sports betting app. Get to winning big money this season by downloading BetSaracen on your iPhone or your Android. You can also bet online at BetSaracen.com. Andrew, I got to tell you, man, I always look forward to doing these Sunday morning report cards with you. You know, we've watched the game. We've given our instant reactions on the postgame show. We've looked back at our pregame bold takes on the accountability session. Now we've had a night to sleep on it. We've digested it. We've done a little bit of homework, and now we're ready to tackle this thing with an in-depth final look. How are we feeling the morning after Arkansas's Week 1 win?
I feel great. I'm feeling good. It's always a better, to wake up 1-0. Yesterday we woke up 0-0. Today we woke up 1-0. So that's always fun. And I'm with you. I like having this day after the game where now we've slept on it, we've digested it, we've processed it, and now we can really look back on it. We've cut up the all 22. We've dove into the film. We've dove into the numbers. We've got some PFF grades. I feel good, and I don't feel vastly different about the game necessarily, but I look forward to breaking it down a little bit more in depth, position by position, and really talking about how we feel about some of these things. Because last night, I think, everyone after the game wants you to hype up every player who played well, and they want you to knock every player that sucked or knock every position group. And that's really what we do here is we go position by position. Here's who stood out. Here's who struggled. Here's what's going on. I felt like during the post-game reaction, some people probably thought we were too fair in some spots or maybe thought we were too harsh in some others. I hope that today we have a nice mix of acknowledging who played really well, because there certainly was a lot of that going on, but also giving some actual detailed thoughts on some of the things that could struggle for Arkansas in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just remember, as we go through this, it is a 1-game sample size. That's all we're referring to. That's all we're talking about. It doesn't mean anything about how we feel about how it's going to go next week or throughout the course of the season. Somebody graded out poorly, they might be great next week. We certainly hope they are. If somebody was awesome this week, they might suck next week. That's just kind of the way this thing works. But yeah, not a lot of big picture declarations here, just evaluating the game that we just watched. So let's whip out the red ink and grade out this performance. And just so everybody knows in advance, we do reserve the right to each give out no more than one A+ to whoever, whatever position group that we deem to be the MVP or the most impressive of the day. So that doesn't mean it's a perfect grade or anything like that, but we do give out an A+ to our top position group, just letting everybody know kind of how the scale works here a little bit.
I will say it's not going to be that much of a controversy this time. I think we're both going to get our A+ out of the way pretty quickly here, right?
I was about to say, man, yeah, a perfect segue into starting this thing off. And we usually start on the offensive side of the football, and maybe we'll mix it up a little bit this year, but not today, because we're going to go with the quarterback position. Taylen Green, yeah, he's my A+. Spoiler alert. Was Taylen Green perfect? No. But when I look around at every spot on this team, offensively and defensively, I have a really hard time finding another position that just had a larger impact on this game. TG, he did what he was supposed to do. He was in command of the offense. He was confident with the football, on time, most all the time. Had some, video game stats that he put up there. Only 7 incompletions, over 300 yards passing, 6 touchdown passes, no interceptions, took care of the football. He was the best player on the field on Saturday. And I'll admit that outside of one throw, both KJ and Trevor Jackson, I felt like kind of left a lot to be desired. Small sample size alert. So for Taylen, like limiting those unnecessary hits, staying healthy, that's an even bigger must to me now. Like I really want him in bubble wrap or an ice bath at all times when he's not on the football field. But I was really, really pleased with Taylen's play. His demeanor out there all looked great. Andrew, Arkansas's passing grade on Pro Football Focus as a team was 93.3. That ranked 5th in the country on PFF on Saturday. Guess who was 6th right behind him?
Is it an SEC team?
No, it's the team you play next, Arkansas State.
Wow. Oh, dude, Rayner was throwing that ball around the yard.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. So a shootout at War Memorial, sign me up for it, man. I can't wait. We'll get to that later. But I assume this is where you're headed. Maybe you'll surprise me a little bit. But yeah, Taylen Green gets the A+ for me, the quarterback room. Very pleased with what I saw.
100%. He's my A+. I think also it's weird where KJ Jackson and Trevor Jackson, It did not go super well, although KJ Jackson did throw his first career touchdown, took a nice hit. That's a fun first career touchdown where you take the hit, you get it out, and you still, that hit doesn't hurt as bad when you see the guy dancing in the end zone. So good for KJ Jackson. We love him. I did not think it went as well. Like last year, Arkansas's 2s and 3s got the entire second half against a really bad UAPB team, and there were no hiccups at all. I mean, Malachi Singleton darted the ball around. KJ Jackson came in at the end, 4 for 4 on his pass attempts. It was one of those days where just everything went right, and you didn't see that for Arkansas's 2s and 3s, which in a weird way, Curtis, made me feel better about Taylon Green's performance. Like, you saw the different level of execution where you're like, and obviously you're playing against a bad opponent, senior quarterback. You should be executing at a high level. So it's tough in this type of performance because if Taylon Green had shown any weaknesses whatsoever, we would have nitpicked the hell out of him and been like, holy cow, you're a senior. How are you not dominating this game? So the fact that he performed the way he did, we can't say anything. I mean, geez, 7 incompletions, 6 touchdowns, career high. I believe it's ties the program record, by the way, for touchdown passes in a game with Brandon Allen. And I believe, did KJ do it once?
Did he have 6 in a game?
I think it may be just Brandon Allen. Just Brandon Allen against, I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is Taylon Green is good at football. He looked awesome. One thing speaking of the quarterbacks, in the backup quarterbacks, did you notice that KJ Jackson, they left him in that first touchdown pass that he threw and that first drive he had was with the first team offense, had the first team offensive line out there, had Mike Washington, had Omega Blake out there. I liked that they gave him that opportunity to kind of just run the show because that's, something he could be tasked with in the future. It went a lot worse for him when they started putting in some of those backup offensive linemen and backup wide receivers. I do not think that's a coincidence. All in all, Arkansas's quarterback room played well because the leader was very, very good. Really good to see your captain, your guy, look calm, collected, composed. Has he added a bunch of wrinkles to his game? I don't know, but he just was executing at such a high level, and I thought he looked way better than he did. I mean, even in the opener last year against a really bad UAPB team, there were things we nitpicked about his performance. There were throws he missed and things we could point to and say, need to clean that up a little bit. One of his incompletions, Curtis, might have been the best throw he made all day to C.J. Brown in the end zone, dropped it right in the bucket. It was maybe just a little bit out there, but I thought that might have been the best throw Taylon Green had all day. He was really good. When I looked at his spray chart, Curtis, everything was in the middle of the field. Yep. Like almost 300 of his yards came in the middle of the field, intermediate and deep. I thought it was just a really solid day. He looked like a guy who knew he was very prepared for the test, knew what the questions were going to be, also knew the answer. That's what you want your quarterback to look like. No complaints about Taylon Green in week 1.
I love that he spread it out a little bit and shared the wealth out there while also kind of clearly establishing who his guy is going to be. Because you can do both those things at the same time, because there were times where it'd be like Andrew Armstrong gets 14 targets and nobody else gets more than 1 reception in a game. And you're thinking, good Lord, he's got to be able to get it to somebody. We talked about it so much throughout the course of last season. I love the way that it went down there. You had 8 targets for Omega Blake, and we'll talk about the receivers in a second. And spread it out to some other guys, 6 for C.J. Brown, 4 for 3 other guys. So he was seeing it. And it kind of also gives me a feel for, okay, Alabama A&M sucks. We understand that. But he has a pretty good command and pretty good feel for where everybody's going to be, where they're supposed to be in their routes out there. So I feel good about where Taylon Green is. To go back to your point real quick about the 6 touchdown passes. I found the tweet from Razorback Communications. Quarterback Taylon Green is the second quarterback in Razorback football history to throw 6 or more touchdown passes in a game. Brandon Allen did it twice.
He had 7 against somebody.
7, yes. 7 against Mississippi State, and then 6 against Ole Miss, and then, Taylon here in 2025.
Back-to-back weeks there, by the way, for Brandon Allen, which is
sick.
Tells you the kind of bender he was on in 2015. One thing, because we're going to reference PFF grades, and for those that don't know, that's Pro Football Focus. It's this site that goes through. If you're a diehard, you've heard of them a ton, and you probably hate them or you love them, depending on how they feel about your guy. But it's not a thing that's the end all be all where it's like, hey, if this guy has a high PFF grade, he's good. But we're going to reference them a lot on this show, and I just want people to know what we're talking about. But Taylon Green was Arkansas's highest graded player, by the way, over 94 overall grade. And to remind everyone, this is not a percentage where, 94 out of 100, I mean, whatever. It starts at 60. And when you make good plays, it goes up incrementally. And throughout the course of the game, you kind of have your grade. And so anything over 60 means you were a net positive, anything once you get into the 70s, 80s. And they also do a thing where, like, if you see someone that's overall season grade is over 90, that likely means they had a bunch of mid 70s and mid 80s. And so it's kind of gone up. You very rarely see a individual game grade this high. 94 basically means Taylor Green did not make a mistake. And he just racked up positive play after positive play. I thought that was really cool to see.
Yeah, that was awesome. And so we've talked about the guy throwing the footballs and how impressed we were with him. Usually that means that the guys catching the footballs impressed as well. So let's move on to the wide receivers. Andrew, I'll let you go first this time. How did the Arkansas pass catchers grade out to you, the wide receivers?
So I'm going to go with an A- grade here, which is very high. I hope that minus doesn't make it sound negative. That's a really solid grade. And this is a position group, by the way, that all offseason we kind of wondered what we had. It's not that we were super concerned, that we were worried Arkansas wasn't going to be able to catch the football, but there's just a lot of unknown. I mean, your leading pass catcher from last year, at least among returning players on the roster, is C.J. Brown with 5 catches for 62 yards. He was the most accomplished receiver on the roster coming back. And so you knew you're going to have to fill that void with someone like Omega Blake, someone like Raylan Sharp, someone like Jalen Brown. And we saw all 3 of those guys make some plays. We also saw C.J. Brown, 4 catches, 49 yards, 2 touchdowns. I like that. Omega Blake, of course, was the star of the show. He brings up this grade. Omega Blake is why I could not have gone any lower than A-. Like, I think he was an A+ by himself. His grade, by the way, on PFF was over 90. Nobody else PFF-wise in the receiver room graded particularly blown away. I think Jalen Brown was the second highest one at around 70, but nobody really blew away. They charged C.J. Brown with 1 drop on that throw that I believe I referenced earlier. So that was the only drop in the room was that one thing. One thing I noticed, Curtis, PFF tracks contested catches. And, if you had an attempt or whatever, there were only 4 contested pass attempts all game. So not a lot of tight windows being thrown into, which is a product of the opponent, maybe a product of how these receivers are getting open, whatever you want to go with it. So I don't know if we really have a ton to firmly evaluate how good everyone in this room is going to be in SEC play. But in terms of their first performance, I have no complaints. You mentioned how much they spread it around. You have your clear number 1 target who dominated this game and was awesome, really took the top off of the defense. One number that I really like, Curtis, to kind of further my point of them being an A-, 164 yards after the catch for Arkansas pass catchers. Now, some of that includes some running backs. Mike Washington had a 27-yard catch and run type of thing. But C.J. Brown, 29 of his 49 yards came after the catch. That's something they're going to need him to do a lot of. Cam Shanks, we saw a few grabs from him. He's going to be a yards after catch type of guy as well. Raylan Sharp will have his fair share. Omega Blake, by the way, over 100 yards. He had 55 yards after the catch. So that's something interesting with him as well. I love that number. I love seeing these receivers look dangerous to complain about. So I'm going with a solid A- here.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I went with an A, and here's why. It's tough sometimes in openers, I think, to let what you think trickle into what you see. You don't want to do that because you got a lot of preconceived, notions, and a lot of it though it's hearsay. But it wasn't so much the case here with the receivers for me as it was some other position groups, and we'll talk about it as we move forward. But there are just so many unknowns with this group coming into the year because, like you said, C.J. Brown is really the only guy that we had seen do it in a Razorback uniform outside of the UAPB game or whatever from Monte Harrison last year. So with all these new faces, I just needed to see them, and I'm glad that I saw a lot of them. Now, again, trying to keep into account here. All right, I'm not trying to look too far ahead at what this is going to mean for the rest of the season, everything like that. Just this game's performance alone, yeah, I'll give it an A. I still have some questions. I'm all the way in on Omega Blake being a bona fide SEC starter. I believe it. I saw enough. He looks the part. I like the chemistry there with Taylor Green. Big, physical, can go get it. I like him. I think that I'm in on C.J. Brown being a reliable target for Arkansas in this pass catching offense here. I'm just not sure or necessarily sold yet on anyone else. but I think they have enough between Jaylen Brown and Raylan Sharp and Cam Shanks to be in decent shape most games, although those three guys are really, really tiny. And that showed to me in this game against Alabama A&M, who's not going to be as physically imposing as anyone else that you play on your schedule. Does that mean that those three guys aren't going to be able to get open? Does it mean that they're not going to be able to catch footballs and make an impact? No, of course not. But I still kind of need to see it against some bigger defenses, because it was just noticeable to me how small they were comparatively speaking there. And they say that size doesn't matter, right? It's not the only factor in there. Well, we'll find out about these Arkansas wide receivers. But again, for this game in particular, it's hard not to walk away pretty happy with what you saw. All five receivers that we just mentioned had 4 more targets. I like it. Guys were getting open. Guys were catching the football. Those are 2 things that Arkansas struggled with last year beyond Andrew Armstrong, which seems like a fundamental qualifier to be an SEC wide receiver. If you're not going to be able to do it against Alabama A&M, you're probably not going to be able to do it against others. Well, you didn't have a problem in week 1, so I like it. And I felt like they were pretty well in sync with Taylon Green. As for game 1, a lot of those guys in a brand new offense, you're trying to get your chemistry and everything going. I felt like it was there. So, I left feeling like you've probably identified a stud and you've got some complementary pieces there. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, maybe so. I think this group has potential. I'm cool with it. I think I'm all right with what I saw.
I mean, since we're doing the report card kind of classroom theme here, I mean, they made a 100% on the first quiz. Now, the quiz is only worth 30 points. It's only, 2% of your overall grade or whatever, but it's like you passed this one easily. Does that mean you'll pass midterms? I don't know. We'll see when we get there. But you passed the first test easily. I think you mentioned how this is the first time this group has played together. This is the first time Taylon has thrown to these guys in real action. So it wouldn't have been, honestly, that out of the realm for them to have some miscommunications. Oh, this guy went that way and I went this way. I thought it was a well-coached group. Only I think 2 penalties on the offensive side of the football for Arkansas all game. So the whole unit was pretty in sync, in unison there. I really like that. I think it's a well-coached group, and I'm with you in terms of this doesn't prove that they will make a lot of plays in SEC play, but it is just nice to see them get open, nice to see everybody kind of have their moment. Now let's carry this into the next few weeks, and C.J. Brown is kind of the guy that I'm with you that after Omega Blake, he's the guy that his arrow is very much going up, and let's just see how far up this thing can go. Because, I mean, now we think, okay, he's going to catch passes in SEC games, but Arkansas needs one of these guys to really emerge as a real weapon. And I think C.J. Brown is the most likely to do that.
Yeah, C.J. Brown took 33 snaps, Raylan Sharp 35. I'm just looking at some of these guys there. Cam Shanks took 14 in the slot. Jaylen Brown with 39. Let me go to the other side here. Let's see. Omega Blake 40. Monte Harrison played 31 snaps and only had 1 reception. I didn't realize he was out there as much as he was. So cool. I mean, that's good to see, because after everything we heard about him, you thought that he was going to play. And he did there. 23.
By the way, he played in the slot a lot. Monte Harrison. He played in the slot a decent amount.
Yeah, which is interesting. And then 23 snaps for Courtney Crutchfield out there. Didn't have a reception or anything.
There's no way he played 23 snaps.
That's the rumor.
I did see him out there a few times. Was he? I don't believe he was targeted. Was he?
I don't think so. No, I don't think that he was. I remember seeing him in the third quarter and then late. Maybe a lot of that was late, but interesting to say the least. And then did we not get an Andy Jean? Maybe he was still out.
I saw him in pregame warmups. That's the only time I saw him.
You did? I know that he'd been banged up, and maybe that was part of it, because it was Andy Jean or Crutchfield, I think, on the depth chart. So Crutchfield probably got the nod. I imagine he was in practice a little bit more. Let's move on to the tight end real quick. And we're usually pretty quick on this, because in this offense, it's a little bit hit or miss with the tight ends. You never know how much they're going to be involved. And obviously there's more to the tight end position than just catching footballs. But I'm going to go, I don't know, man, B minus, or, it was just kind of a whatever thing for me. First of all, shout out to Jaden Platt for playing more snaps at tight end than the presumed starter, Rohan Jones, and Andreas Postka combined on Saturday. So he was out there for the first snap, and he was out there a ton. And I like that. I think Jaden Platt looks pretty good there. I will say, he had a reception, but what I remember most about Platt was he whiffed on a play at one point where Arkansas was hitting the backfield for a TFL. and Taylor Green was laying into him about that missed assignment. And I liked it. He was like, all right, yeah, I kind of left my QB hanging out to dry there, and he's letting me hear it. And then he's, like, took it, went back to the line of scrimmage. Like, it wasn't a divisive thing or anything like that, but I just remember seeing it and laughing about it. Shout out to the touchdown machine, Andreas Poski, for a nice grab in the end zone. It's just what he does. He catches footballs and he catches them in the end zone. I was a little surprised that Rohan wasn't targeted a single time, I don't think. But then again, the tight ends as a whole only had 3 targets. That's just kind of the way that it is sometimes with this offense. We talked about it so much last year. So I would like to have seen more, but I have a hard time blaming them for that necessarily. Poska graded out pretty well in run blocking. He only, I think he only played like 11 snaps or something. I will say Platt and Jones did not necessarily grade out well in that particular area. So maybe I'll go B- there, but not a whole lot to go off with the tight ends. I think just some surprises to me in terms of how the snaps were distributed.
Curtis, I'm going to go with a C+, and that's not because I think they're way worse than you think they are. I mean, we're not separated by much there.
Mm-hmm.
I just think like the tight ends did not have a huge impact on this game.
Yeah.
What impact they did have, I would say, was a net positive, no doubt about it, with Poski's touchdown. Platt made a really nice kind of adjustment reception there. Like all that. One thing I noticed, Curtis, you mentioned Rohan Jones not playing a ton and Platt playing more than the other 2 guys combined. So they started the season. Arkansas started the season in what I believe would be 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back there. They quickly, after 2 plays, went 4 wide, took Platt off the field, had 4 receivers, 1 running back. Then a play later, they took 2 receivers out, went 2 tight end. They had Lassiter and Poski, or they had it was Lassiter and Poski in there. So you had like different guys, different personnels. I like that versatility. I like the fact that Arkansas can do some of those things. And we hear that all the time in fall camp. Oh yeah, we've got all these tight ends. We're gonna have some 2 tight ends. We're gonna have 3 tight ends. We're gonna have an H and a Y, and we're gonna have all this, and we're gonna split one of them out wide. You kind of hear a lot of that. My thing is, Curtis, one, we know that tight end is just not going to be a prioritized thing of this offense. Like, they're not going to funnel offensive, especially in the passing game, to the tight ends. We asked every week, are they going to get Luke Has going? Are they going to get Luke Has going? We are not doing that bit with Rohan Jones. We do like, and we think he's athletic. We think he's got a chance. I'd be stunned if we went all season and we didn't have maybe 1 or 2 moments where Rohan Jones makes a play downfield. But I am not going to do that bit where I'm waiting on the tight ends to become a huge part of this offense. My question, though, Curtis, is about those formations. If your tight ends aren't really that much of a big deal and they don't really move the needle that much, especially in the run game, like you said, they didn't grade out super well. Is it really worth it to play 2 tight ends and play 3 and rotate 3 guys and, have all these formations with 1 or 2 guys? It's like, I don't know. We mentioned the receivers that we're kind of intrigued by some of these different skill sets. Go 4 wide a little bit. Hell, go 2 running backs every now and then. You got Mike Washington and Braylon Russell, both of which can make plays in the passing game. It's like, I think there's some opportunities there for Arkansas to, if you really don't like your tight ends, which seems like they don't play 2 of them at all times. Don't play even 1 of them.
You don't have to. Yeah.
Yeah. You can do other things. And so I say all that to say, I thought the tight ends were fine. Poski's touchdown, awesome. All he does is catch touchdowns in the red zone. I like Platt. I feel like he's a guy that in fall camp, the light bulb is starting to go off for him. He's in year 3 now of his college career, starting to kind of come into his own physically, mentally, all that. So I do like him. I think Rohan Jones, we will hear from at some point this season. But I did not come away from this game blown away by the position group. I thought they were a net positive, though. So I'll go C+.
There we go. Fair enough. I like it. Folks, I got to tell you, there's not much that tops just an ice cold brew on a football weekend. It's a beautiful thing. And your new Arkansas hangout is Goat Lab Red. Saturday was the grand opening of Goat Lab Red in Fayetteville, and it's the place to be for all your post-game activities. Stop by Oak Plaza on North Garland and get you some of the best brews and burgers around. Sip on signature Goat Lab brews, just like the Razorback, the Tusk Light. Shout out to our man Dudley Dawson there. Grab one of their signature burgers and then come back on Sundays for all-you-can-eat pancakes with your choice of 2 Goat Lab brews or 2 mimosas for just $16. Listen, if we weren't recording this right now, Andrew, like right this moment on this Sunday morning, I'd be there right now. I sacrifice pancakes and beer for my affection for you. I really enjoy doing these Sunday mornings with you, man. But maybe we'll do one of these Ooh, idea. Go Lab Red.
Now you're cooking. Now you're cooking.
Post game report cards from Goat Lab Red. And when you're talking, I'll be sipping my beer. When I'm talking, you'll be eating the pancakes. I think we're on to something here. We're going to talk to Bill about it. There we go. It's settled. All right. Let's see. Moving on. I wanted to save the offensive line and the running backs for the end of the offensive side of the ball, since they kind of, coincide with each other so much there. Let's start with the offensive line. Andrew, you can go first here. Let us know how the revamped, what we've been told is an improved offensive line. How did they grade out in your opinion?
So my grades for them are not terribly dissimilar from what PFF had, and we'll talk about them a little bit, kind of the overall looks for each of these guys. I want to start with the conundrum on the right side of the O-line, because if everyone remembers doing these post-game report cards, every game we'd come to the post-game, we'd say, well, on the left side, they graded out okay, but Blackstock and Harris gave up 9 pressures over there. So they, it's like it would be kind of that thing. Mm-hmm. And that was a big question mark. One, it's a revamped group overall. You have a new left tackle. You're moving your left tackle to left guard. You got a new center. But we felt pretty confident that those guys who have a ton of experience at the D1 level, we felt okay about that. They're less of a question mark. The question mark was you have a right guard who is a redshirt freshman, never really played a ton at this level, but they do like him. Who, by the way, Kobe Branham, the highest graded offensive lineman on the team yesterday. So I think that's a very encouraging development. And then at right tackle, you have a Marion Harris, a redshirt junior, who was your lowest graded guy last year, hoping to kind of take that next step. I feel like, and I think they feel like, right tackle is the more natural position for a Marion Harris. The problem, though, is that they have still kind of a battle going on, so to speak. It's not really a battle, though. We've called this all along. Kobe Branham there at right guard. Shaq McCroy, the Oregon transfer, the largest human being alive, is that 6th guy on the offensive line. So they wanted to get him some work. He plays right tackle. So when he goes in at right tackle, they move a Marion Harris, who we all agree, everyone has agreed, he is better at right tackle. They move a Marion Harris inside to right guard. Curtis, PFF does not specify for some of these, like a Marion Harris, they just have him listed as a right tackle and they have his grade. I would love to see what his grades were at guard and tackle, respectively. I would venture to say that his grade was a lot worse at right guard. And for the game, Marion Harris graded out the worst of all these Razorback linemen with an below average grade of 55.4 overall, 54.1 in the run, 69.7 in the pass. By the way, that's a common theme. Almost every single player on this offensive line was much better in pass protection than they were in run blocking, which is what my eyes told me and saw me yesterday. Corey Robinson, that was kind of his claim to fame. He had one of the best pass blocking grades in the country last year at left tackle, one of the worst run blocking grades for a left tackle. He was kind of right there with that yesterday. He had an 80.8 pass block grade and a 53.8 run block grade. You also had Caden Kittler had an 84.7 pass block grade, a 54.0 run block grade. Kobe Branham, by the way, was one of the few guys who had a higher run block grade. He was at 89.6 run blocking, 85.6 pass blocking. Huge day for the redshirt freshman. I feel like that should clear up that battle there at right guard. So I think there should be, and you're playing game 1 against Alabama A&M. You're going to rotate. You're going to do some things. The only thing I didn't like was the getting Shaq McCroy in there, who also graded out very poorly, and moving a Marion Harris into right guard. I feel like you're taking a plus and turning him into a minus in a Marion Harris, and you're putting in a bad offensive lineman in place of a good one in Kobe Branham. I give Arkansas a B- yesterday, Curtis. I say all that to say I give them a B-, and the reason why is because I think if they just stick with their starting 5, their actual 5 best linemen, you've got a pretty solid offensive line who's a lot better in pass protection, needs to clean up some things in the run game, and we'll see if they do that. I think Alabama A&M clearly was stuffing that box, loading it up, doing all kinds of blitzes, doing all kinds of stunts to try and wreak havoc up front. So part of that's matchup-wise, but I think with that actual starting 5, Arkansas played pretty well up front offensively. Taylor Green was not pressured much. The grades reflect that. The actual game reflected that. They need to impose their will a little bit more in the run game, and that's going to be a question mark for this unit because a lot of these guys, even Carmona, who's Arkansas's most accomplished guy, not necessarily the most imposing run blocker of all time. So I think that's going to be the question I have moving forward. But overall, I give them a B-. I just wish they would stick with that actual starting 5 and quit the rotation, quit pretending that Shaq McCroy is going to be a big factor on this team year 1.
Yeah, that's it's a really good point that you raised there, because I went with a B, but I think you've talked me into a B minus, because that's one thing I hadn't considered. I agree. The mixing and matching, and I get it in a game like this, you have the ability to do that, and that's fine. But I'm with you. Like, you kind of need to get it figured out here and stick with it, because I do think it impacts things. And so from that standpoint, I almost do want to drop them down and copy you. I won't. I'll stick with what I have, because I don't want to be that guy. But yeah, I think the word you used last night when we were talking about it on I don't remember if it was the post game or the accountability session or whatever, was but that the O-line was fine. And that's pretty much how I feel. Yeah, pass blocking was a real problem area for Arkansas last season, and they held up really well on Saturday. And even some of the pressure Taylor Green did face, it wasn't necessarily on him. There were other guys who were not picking up, not doing their assignments, whatever. Yeah, you had 3 starters in Branham, Kittler, and Robinson, who graded out over 80 in pass blocking. Cool. It was an emphasis, so you want to see the dividends from that right away. If you went out there and prioritized it in the portal, you want to be better at it. And so that's good. Run blocking was a different story. This is just a game where I felt like Arkansas would be, kind of carving out some gaping holes there and just, rattling off chunk plays. And they really didn't. Whatever. Some of it was related to what Alabama A&M was prioritizing and doing defensively. But at the end of the day, it's still an FCS opponent in your trenches. You know what I mean? Arkansas averaged, 5 yards per carry? Fine. Not stellar given the competition. A little bit aided by some late tack-ons. Whatever. I did find it interesting that the consistent guys in terms of their run block and pass block being pretty much matched up in PFF grades was your guards, between, your redshirt freshman in Kobe Branham, and then Carmona, who was, I think he was like mid to upper 60s in both there. And then you had that big variance, like you talked about, with your tackles, and then obviously there at center. So listen, solid pass block, little underwhelming in the run. It's game 1. You win by 45. I'm not concerned about it, but I'm with you. They got some things they have to figure out, have to clean up, and not concerned. Just know that it can and will get better. I think that's where I'm at.
I'm going to read off some numbers here, Curtis, which are going to perfectly lob us up right into the running backs and grading their performance. We talk a lot about, we'll use this term pressures a lot, and total pressures, for those that are not familiar, any type of, like, if you're rushing the passer on defense, any sack, obviously that's a pressure, but anytime you hit the quarterback, anytime you force him to throw the ball away, anytime you get a hurry, anything like that, or you're in the backfield causing havoc, they grade that out with a pressure. So sometimes you might have a defensive lineman where, he's only got 3 sacks on the year, but his pressure rate may be higher, and so that kind of tells you some things. Offensive lines, you can also learn a lot. I don't care how many sacks you give up, although I do. How many times are you allowing pressure? There were several games last year, multiple in the SEC, where Arkansas had at least one guy give up double-digit pressures. Keyshawn Blackstock had some games where he gave up 10 pressures. Marion Harris had some games where he's in that 8 to 10 range. Yesterday, in terms of pressures allowed, if you were a person, and I'm talking to you, the audience, if you were a person who felt like Arkansas's offensive line held up really well in pass pro, and it was the running backs who allowed most of the pressure, you would be correct. Your eyes did not deceive you. Here were the numbers. Marion Harris allowed 2 pressures. He was Arkansas's lowest graded offensive lineman. I imagine at least one of those came in at guard, maybe both. Shaq McCroy, who didn't have a ton of pass blocking reps, did allow a pressure which resulted in a sack. Also allowed KJ Jackson to nearly get his head taken off. I don't know if they counted that for him. Carmona allowed 1. Cash Courtney, the freshman center, he allowed 1. Mike Washington allowed 2. And Braylon Russell allowed 3. In 9 pass block reps, Braylon Russell allowed 3 pressures, one of which resulted in a sack. So you had basically 10 pressures total for your team. 5 of them came from running backs. So very much would lead you to believe that the O-line really did hold up well. I mean, half the line didn't allow any pressures at all. And then your running backs allowed 5 between them. So that's kind of a telling stat there.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And you're right. It does lob us up perfectly into grading out the running backs here, which I went with a C- with those guys. And I don't know if that's harsh or not, but the way I look at it is you didn't dominate with your rushing attack against an FCS opponent. And then both the primary running backs were your 2 worst pass blockers, for the course of the entire game. So you got to ding them for it, whatever. Listen, we've talked a lot about running back and, our post-game show, the accountability session. So I'll keep it pretty short and sweet here. Did Mike Washington look like Nile Davis? No. But am I in the camp of folks who said that they were disappointed with him or that he was overhyped, whatever? Nah, not that either. I mean, he still averaged 8.8, per carry. I know that was very aided by that late run that he had. Outside of that, it was about 4 yards per carry. But listen, it wasn't the type of, kickstarting a Heisman campaign type of performance that it just sounded like you might be primed up for with everything that we heard about how he'd been showing out in camp and all that. Still wound up with over 100 yards of total offense and a touchdown. So I think Mike Washington is going to get better. We'll see. I was hoping that he'd have like that special type of performance to get people really, really fired up about that, Batman and Robin type of thing with him and Taylor Green, whatever. Braylon kind of looked like a slimmer version of exactly how I remembered him from the Liberty Bowl, for example, and the 3.7 yards per carry, I think shows that running wise, like they were okay, not great, not bad, whatever. But then they had the 2 worst pass block grades on the team by a wide margin. Mike Washington was a 28.3. That's really bad. Braylon Russell was a 9.9. Like I didn't even know
any grade in any realm as low as 9.9 out of 100.
I've never seen anything like it. And thinking back to what you were saying about how these start at 60. And like you make good plays, they go higher. You have some missed assignments, some bad plays, and it goes down. To get all the way, like,
by the way,
he was one more blown assignment away from a 0. Is that possible? Like, it's just wild to me.
You know what? I just remembered. And by the way, we referenced the PFF thing. It's not a foolproof concept.
No.
Do you remember that game where Hudson Clark had one pass rush rep and he like got a sack and he looked great in it? So his pass rush grade was like 98.4. Right. And it raised his overall grade for the entire year. Where it was like, oh, damn, Hudson Clark is the highest graded defensive back on the team. It's like, yeah, because he got a pass rush grade.
Yeah, exactly. It was unbelievable. But like I don't have any long-term, big concerns about Arkansas's running back room after that game there against Alabama A&M. I kind of expected them to be able to run all over them. And I know that's a combination of, line and everything else that goes with it. It's not just the running backs. But between that and the pass blocking, it's just something that has to get better. And yeah, I did expect more. And so that's why I went a little bit lower on my grade.
Yeah, so I went C. You went C minus. I go C. And I will fully admit that part of that is the expectation. And that's another thing that we need to clarify then on these position grades. Like if for Omega Blake, by the way, if Omega Blake has 2 catches for 24 yards against Ole Miss, he is going to get like a D. Whereas if CJ Brown has 2 catches for 24 yards against Ole Miss, that might be a C+. If one of them's a touchdown, you know what I mean? It's very different about what you expect of the guy versus what they perform. And so for Mike Washington, who we've been waiting to see all this explosion and all this crazy game-breaking speed, which not to say that he didn't show that. I mean, he had a couple big runs there. We saw bursts from him. The thing that jumped out to me, if you look at PFF, Curtis, they are under the impression that Braylon Russell ran better than his line indicates. They credited him with 4 missed tackles forced, which is not that's not a foolproof statistic at all. They credited Mike Washington with 0. He did not break any tackles. He did not juke anyone. He did not force any missed tackles. Braylon Russell forced 4 allegedly. Wasn't able to really get loose for any big runs, and I think that's kind of the thing we're waiting to see with Braylon Russell. We saw that one against the worst defense of all time in Mississippi State. There's not a ton of explosiveness in his game, but he did miss some tackles there, fought for extra yardage, but I'm with you. I was underwhelmed by Arkansas's run game, really disappointed with the running backs in pass protection. We had heard that Braylon Russell was a great pass protector. That's one thing Colby Smith said. He's like, even as a freshman, he always had a good feel for pass blocking. Mike Washington, a very experienced senior running back, you expect him to be able to pick up a blitzer here and there. So I'm disappointed that the running backs were having some missed assignments there in the pass protection. And they weren't bad. I really don't think they ran poorly or anything like that. I thought they were just kind of okay. And so I'm going with a C.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say about Braylon is I do believe that with the 4 tackles missed or whatever the stat was there, because there were a couple times. Exactly. Yeah, he would get met at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, and then all of a sudden he turns it into 4 or whatever, and that's what he's good for. Yeah, I mean that's a big part of what makes him effective. And but you're right, like the explosiveness and everything, maybe not so much there, but I still do believe that the complementary talents and skill sets between him and Mike Washington, it sets up to have a nice duo there at running back. I also want to give a shout out. Like it was cool to see, hey, Rodney Hill got a few carries there, but hey, Cam Settle's got some touches. AJ Green was in there a little bit. So it was nice to see all those guys get involved. For whatever reason, I'm like, I was just particularly happy to see AJ Green. And,
yeah.
I know he transferred and everything, but he had a nasty, nasty injury last year at, where's he at? Oklahoma State? Yeah, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And so it's just good to see him back out there. Once a hog, always a hog, whatever.
Had the dreads flowing, man.
Had the dreads flowing. He looked good out there for sure. Folks, do you ever get tired of just having to juggle through insurance companies just to find the right coverage? It can get frustrating. Well, at OZK Insurance and Rogers, they make insurance simple again. It's a 100% independent agency, and they shop the entire marketplace to deliver the best combination of cost and coverage, saving you both time and money, whether it's home, auto, boat, motorcycle, life, or commercial insurance. Their friendly team has access to a wide range of flexible options designed just for you. They serve Northwest and Central Arkansas, including, rattle them off here. I mean, Bentonville, Centerton, Fayetteville, Little Rock, Hot Springs, Springdale, and beyond. Let OZK Insurance be the trusted advisor that you never knew you needed. With over 600 five-star Google reviews, that's good. Start today with a free online quote at ozkinsurance.com or give them a call at 479-715-4200. OZK Insurance, protection made simple. All right, moving on to the defense, and we'll start in the trenches, Andrew. Defensive line, how'd they grade out for you on Saturday?
So I thought, and I think that sometimes when we talk about defensive line, you kind of split it up into ends and tackles. Mm-hmm. And I think this game was actually a reflection of how we felt about both of those spots, because I think the ends had a couple moments where you're like, okay, Phillip Lee, we noticed him out there. Quincy Rhodes got his second career sack, doubles his career total. Like to see that. He graded out very well. Phillip Lee also graded out very well. Justice Boone did not grade out crazy well, although he was credited with one pressure. I thought the ends were like fine, nothing to write home about, but they were like serviceable. Cam Ball was the only defensive tackle that Arkansas had who had any impact on the game whatsoever, negative or positive. Like, just he was the only guy that you noticed that was out there. Danny Saili got absolutely ripped by PFF. He had one of the worst grades on the team. I didn't necessarily think he was that bad, but they thought he was that bad. PFF also thought that Ian Giffard played decent. And I, not saying he didn't, but he was not credited with a pressure, was not credited with any stops in the backfield or anything like that. Weirdly enough, two of Arkansas's better graded defensive linemen from yesterday were a couple of freshmen. Reginald Vaughn, who played like 8 snaps, he graded out pretty well. Hell, Caleb Bell was credited with the pressure. Like some of those guys, Otis also graded out pretty well. Some of those guys that played in the fourth quarter had more of an impact on the game than Keyshawn Blackstock or Ian Giffard or Danny Saili. And so that's a little bit of a red flag. I read off the pressures from Arkansas from the O-line, and they sound great, right? Those really low numbers. Well, here were the pressures from the defense. You had 3 pressures from Phillip Lee. That's what Arkansas brought him in to do. No complaints there. Quincy Rhodes had 2 pressures. Not a crazy day, but had a sack there. You'll live with that. Xavier Sori had 3 pressures from the linebacker spot, not a defensive lineman. Caleb Bell 1. Bradley Shaw, not a defensive lineman, 1. Justice Boone 1. Cam Ball 1. Shakur Small, not a defensive lineman, 1. That's it in terms of pressures in the backfield for the Arkansas defense. Half of them were not defensive linemen. In fact, I would say with Xavier Sori's 3, maybe even more than half. I would give the defensive line overall, Curtis, I would give them a C-. And the reason why I say C- is because my expectations were pretty low. So, so they weren't good, but I didn't expect them to be good. They just didn't get a ton of pressure. Control the run game, okay. Well, I'd have to really go back and look and see who really was in charge of stopping that run game, but it's not like they were getting gashed or anything. It continues to be an issue for me that so many people on this team that are going to be expected to play key snaps do not have a proven track record of putting pressure on the quarterback. And after one game this season, they still do not have a track record of putting pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah. I'm going to probably echo quite a bit of what you said here, but I felt the same way, kind of breaking it down between ends and tackles, because it kind of impacts how I feel about grading it. And then I kind of met in the middle. And so I went C. So we're pretty close there with our grades. I try to keep things in perspective when we do this. And, whereas earlier I was talking about, I don't want it wasn't such a thing with wide receivers for me from just having a kind of a built-in expectation, because there were so many unknowns in that room. And what concerns me about the defensive line for Arkansas is I feel like I know I'm just not crazy about it. And so I try not to let that cloud my judgment at all. But the truth is, if there's a weak point on this team that I am not necessarily sold that it'll get better throughout the course of the year, it's the defensive line. And because I'm just concerned that there's not the depth or like the depth of talent that you need. Like, you're just going to need a combination of like good health and guys, I think, overplaying projections to hold up throughout the course of the season here. Like, it's a concerning area for Arkansas. To your points, yeah, they didn't get bullied or pushed around on Saturday. If they did, that would be very, very alarming. On the flip side, they also weren't wrecking shop in the backfield against, an FCS opponent the way that you would just expect a team to do, even if you have some question marks at that spot, right? So, outside of the first quarter, Alabama A&M didn't have much going on. But at the end of the day, what was it, 2 sacks and 6 TFLs or something, against a team like that? It's still just kind of meh to me. So, like, whether you're showing all your cards or not, this is just a team that I feel like you should line up and whip at the line of scrimmage. And they didn't necessarily do that. Now, some positives that I like that you mentioned, Phillip Lee, he had, the 3 QB pressures. He looked good. Like, he's fast. He's athletic. He had that left tackle in quicksand a few times there. I like Phillip Lee. Like, I'm excited about the potential there. Is he an every down type of guy, or is he a specialist? Though I don't know. We'll find out. It was good to see Quincy Rhodes get home for a sack. You mentioned that PFF loves him. They certainly do, and that was good, right? Both graded out well against the run. Also, Cam Ball got the TFL. Cool. Something like Justice Boone, only 15 snaps. Like, I didn't expect that. Kind of surprised me. I don't know if that's something to read into or not, but it was notable. In the game, you mentioned it felt like Danny Saili might have popped a little bit more than Ian Jaffard, but it actually kind of graded out the opposite. I guess both of them were just kind of out there. Ian Jaffard played 19 snaps. That was more than Saili, which is maybe encouraging for him. Blackstock got 11 snaps in there. I guess I would just say that was one thing that I was really watching, was how many reps was Ian Jaffard going to get out there, because you need him to be a dude who's capable of playing a lot of snaps for you. He probably needs to be playing more than 19, but that was more than any other defensive tackle there besides Cam Ball. So at the end of the day, listen, my hope for this defensive line, honestly, is that David Oki returns and he emerges as a starter, because I like the idea of Ian Jaffard and Danny Saili as your rotation pieces with Keyshawn Blackstock as your emergency guy a hell of a lot more than I like the current setup. So yeah, I'm worried about this unit, but they didn't get smoked in this game where I'm feeling worse or panicking about it. I just think they should have imposed their will more than they did. And it's something that we really got to keep an eye on moving forward.
Yeah. A few quick things before we move on. And I really do hate to keep harping on it, because it feels like we're like bullying a little bit. And people get really upset when we talk about the defensive line. Their first sack of the game, which came from Quincy Rhodes, came when it was 45-7. Which is at the point of the game, as you would know, where Alabama A&M is in very obvious passing downs. I believe it was a 3rd and 12 where it happened. The fact that they weren't able to get home until then is weird to me. I've also heard some people say this. Hell, I've even heard this from people that have talked to people inside the program, where they say, well, the starting group is good. It's just the depth outside of that that's a concern, which sure, I can buy that. The starting defensive line yesterday, a guy we haven't mentioned is Charlie Collins, who actually was on the field to start the game at defensive end. And he was, I love Charlie Collins. He graded out extremely poorly. He has not played a ton of snaps in college football. All of them have gone really poorly. And that's not to say that he won't get better and that he can't one day be an impact player for Arkansas, but I would not say he is necessarily a foolproof guy you can count on. I think Lee and Boone are going to have to carry a lot of that edge there on the defensive end. And Jaffard, who you mentioned, is right now currently the starting defensive tackle for Arkansas. The next time that he hits a player in the backfield in his collegiate career will be the first time. We're talking about a guy that's 300, 400 snaps of college football, has never made a play, has not made a single play. And that's not to say he can't do it, not to say that he won't ever do it. I don't buy the notion that, oh yeah, they're set at the starting group. They just need to develop some depth. Some of these guys that started yesterday have never made plays in their entire career. And so it's like, I just don't, I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes when we talk to people that are just like downplaying the proven production of the defensive line. Hell, even the guys that you really are counting on. Quincy Rhodes, who we feel good about, has 2 career sacks. Cam Ball, who we love, has 3 career sacks. It's like, there's just a lot to be proven. It's time for this group to go out there and just shut us up. Just go out there and play well and shut us up. until that happens, we are going to keep yapping.
No, that's very, very true. And I hope that they do. I truly do. We'll see. Linebacker, I had more problems with this than anything else because sometimes there are just games. Like we talk about the tight ends for offense, and sometimes it's like, well, this didn't really have a huge impact on the game. It was just one of those days, whatever. And I kind of felt that way about linebacker in this particular game. Looking at the stats from yesterday on defense, and it really stood out to me. Like your leading tackler in this football game had 4. Like, you know what I mean? It was just very, very evenly distributed. You had 3 guys with 4, 2 guys with 3, and then it's like a dozen guys with 2, and then like 30 people who had 1 tackle in there. That's not going to be the case when you get into the meat of the season. I think that these Arkansas linebackers are really going to be racking them up there. It's whatever. I just thought that it was interesting to see. Now, like rough day at the office for Xavier Sorey, according to PFF. And it's like you were talking about it before the show. Did he miss a tackle or 2? And so he really got dinged there because he was also the guy who had 3 QB hurries. And so he was getting back there and harassing the quarterback a little bit. That is something that we're going to need to see more of from these Arkansas linebackers, which we view as the strength of the defense to help out this defensive line that we don't know how much consistent pressure they're going to be able to put on the quarterback. You still got to do it. You got to get creative with it. You're going to be sending linebackers. You're going to be sending some other guys. And I thought that they got that from this linebacker room yesterday. Steven Dix, I thought he was solid. He's fine. Bradley Shaw had some moments. He didn't get a sack, but I'm almost positive I remember him hitting the quarterback on one play. And I was like, oh yeah, there's Brad Shaw. Okay. So I don't have a whole hell of a lot to say about him here. I'm not worried about these guys at all. This was just one of those games where it kind of played out the way that it did. Nothing to write home about. I'm just going to give them just like a throwaway B. Here you go. Take your B. Because they weren't bad. They weren't great. They're going to be a lot better. But I just didn't really have a whole hell of a lot to say about them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, so the throwaway grade I'm giving them is C+, and part of the reason why is again it comes back to expectations versus reality. My expectations for the Arkansas linebacker room are actually pretty high, and when I look at the rest of this defense, they need to be high for all those reasons you just listed out. That like they're going to put a lot on these guys. Bradley Shaw is the one guy that if I could make a case for them being better, PFF did not grade Bradley Shaw or Xavier Sorey very well at all. Now Sorey, I'd have to go back and look. He only had 1 tackle, which is weird to me. Maybe he missed a few. I'll have to go back and look. But Bradley Shaw, I thought actually popped a little bit more than PFF gave him credit for. You mentioned the pass rushing. I just liked that they got him on the field 3 plays into the game. Because Bradley Shaw is a sophomore that played a decent amount last year, but was not an everyday, every week part of the game plan for Arkansas. It seems he very much is going to be that. And sometimes at linebacker, when you have 2 guys like Xavier Sorey and Steven Dix, who are going to be on the field 95% of the snaps, you wonder how many opportunities that's going to lead for someone like Bradley Shaw, a freshman like Tavion Wallace, or maybe a transfer in Trent Whalen or Andrew Harris. I love that Bradley Shaw got in there and was like in the mix early. I thought he looked athletic. I think he's going to be a guy that we got to keep our eye on a little bit. The reason I'm going C+, though, Curtis, like I said, the expectation's high, and I believe it was Steven Dix that got carried into the end zone on the first drive of the game. You meet a guy at the 3-yard line, and you're an SEC linebacker. You don't get carried into the end zone by an FCS running back who's 184 pounds. You just don't. Like, that just doesn't happen. And I didn't like seeing that visual.
I feel you. I'm I'm looking at the tackling stuff there on PFF, just try to figure out what happened with Sorey. When you make 1 tackle and then you get 1 missed tackle, that's gonna drag you down. And then also he was targeted in coverage one time and they credit him with allowing a 26-yard reception there. So if you go look at his grades, that's kind of reflected pretty heavily there. I think that's just kind of what we're looking at. So.
Small sample size skewing a little bit. Maybe that's one of the missed assignments. And by the way, I have a friend who worked at PFF who told me that coverage grades and coverage stats on PFF are a fluke thing, that they basically, if you play flawless coverage and they do not throw the ball your way, they do not grade that rep. They only grade reps where the ball is thrown your way. And if you're the nearest defender, they're crediting you with that coverage. So if someone else misses an assignment and you run over there, you will get credited with that. That could be what happened there with Sorey. But Pittman did mention missed assignments. Perhaps, that would be what he's referencing.
He did. Well, the first question he's going to get in his press conference on Monday is, after watching the film, did you see anything that surprised you or stood out to you? So he'll probably enlighten us a little bit on what those might have been.
If he comes out Monday and he says, "Yep, Xavier Story just gave up an absolute bomb opening drive," there you go. PFF vindicated.
Yep, no, that's exactly right. Hey, folks, today's post-game report card is presented by our friends at Walter Christmas Lighting of Arkansas. We know that the holiday season is right around the corner, especially Halloween. We're getting there. Many of you love the idea of getting in the holiday spirit, but you just don't have the time or the resources to light up your house and wow the neighborhood. Well, luckily for you, Walter Christmas Lighting has you covered this fall and winter. If you're in Northwest Arkansas or the River Valley, you got to hit them up. They come out there and they take care of you. All the materials are provided. Any color, any pattern that you choose, they come out and install the lights for you. They give you free maintenance throughout the holiday season. They come and take it all down after the holiday season wraps up in January. If you sign up for Halloween lights, you're also going to get your Christmas lights for 50% off there. That's a pretty good deal. Just text our guy Brett for a free estimate at 479-459-1380. You can also check out their website at walterchristmaslighting.com or like them on Facebook by scanning the QR code on your screen. It's Walter Christmas Lighting of Arkansas, your local holiday lighting experts. Okay, a couple other things to get into. The secondary being one of them. Arkansas's defensive backs. Andrew, it's your turn to go first here. Where did you land on the Arkansas secondary in this game? Where I would say dicey red alarm sounding all over the place that first drive, and then kind of like the rest of the defense there, seemed like they settled in pretty nicely the rest of the way.
So what's weird about the secondary, Curtis, and it's similar to the D line, where if you ask me about the secondaries, I feel differently than I do if you ask me about the corners. Yep. A lot of the mistakes that were made and a lot of the plays that we would flag as red flags were really just one-on-one guy. Like it was Julian Neal who on the opening drive, he all game long, Julian Neal was targeted twice. He allowed 2 receptions for 29 yards. Both of them were on the opening drive, and both of them we all remember. Those are Julian Neal mistakes, and those are Julian Neal things that we're going to credit. Does that make me feel differently about the overall secondary? You know what I mean? Not really. It's kind of like easy to point who the issue was. One thing I will say, Alabama A&M is just not a good enough offense, not a good enough passing game to exploit issues that are in the Arkansas secondary. Yep. And so some of it, like some of these guys that I think are kind of vulnerable, did not get exposed. For example, Jaheim Singletary, we remember him giving up that 1 reception. He was targeted 4 times and only allowed that 1 reception for 15 yards. You could look at that and say, hey, man, that's not too bad.
A nice little PBU in there. Yeah.
Yeah, had a PBU in there. But there was also a play where, the guy maybe had a step on him and the quarterback missed the guy by 7 yards. And, so there's some of that. And I would remind people that UAPB only threw the ball for 39 yards against Arkansas last year, and that secondary sucks. So it's like sometimes these issues don't get exposed yet. Ultimately, outside of the first drive, Arkansas's secondary held up okay. They weren't getting consistently beat. They weren't getting consistently letting them get behind them or anything. I thought Arkansas safeties did pretty well. I thought Worth was solid. He made one nice little play there. Wooden, I noticed him a few times. He was always around the ball. Never really saw him getting exposed in coverage. I still just have very clear questions about whether or not Arkansas corners can guard man-to-man at all. I expected myself to go a lot lower, Curtis, but overall, if I'm grading the secondary overall, I'm just going to give them a C-, just a C-. And it's not like I don't know, maybe you're going higher, maybe you're going lower. I didn't think they were good. I didn't think they were horrible, but I also just don't think Alabama A&M was set up and equipped to really exploit some of the issues that we saw early on. Real quick, wanted to just run through a few numbers. I mentioned Jaheim Singletary, 1 for 4, 15 yards. Julian Neal, 2 for 2, 29 yards. Jordan Young, the nickel position, was a plus for Arkansas in this game. Shakur Smalls was the highest graded Razorback defender, I believe, with an 84.8 overall grade. Now, he played a lot in the second half. I don't know if you want to take that with a grain of salt or what, but Jordan Young was targeted 3 times, did not allow a reception. Shakur Smalls only allowed 1 reception for 4 yards, so good stuff from Arkansas's nickels. Selman Bridges played 11 snaps, was not targeted. Kenai Walker played like 30 snaps, was not targeted. So we don't really have much to evaluate there. I think overall, I don't feel great about the corners moving forward. They didn't get completely exposed in this game. I just feel like they could have. So overall, I'm splitting the difference, going C-.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had him at a C+. For whatever reason, I just woke up a little bit more optimistic than I was yesterday. Yeah. I don't know. But
on paper, they didn't give up much. So it's hard to say like, hey, they were so bad. Well, He gave up like 120 yards of passing or whatever.
Yeah, of course. And I'm with you. Like, I don't know that we learned a whole lot. Some questions that need to be answered. The number one reason I brought up the PFF team passing grades and pointed out the Arkansas State thing was because, hey, there's still going to be a huge talent gap between Arkansas and Arkansas State on the field. Arkansas should win this game by 4 touchdowns, whatever. But they are going to be tested differently against Arkansas State with their secondary than they were in this game against Alabama A&M. So maybe we'll learn a little bit more about them by this time next week. We'll see. Yeah, you mentioned the Shakur Small stocks there. Good for him, man. Like, I hadn't really thought that much about him. And yeah, he was out there quite a bit. Was he the one that got the forced fumble there late in the game?
Yeah. He also had the pass rush. He was rushing the passer from the nickel spot.
Yeah, I mean, come on, he's
knocking balls down. He was great.
Where did he transfer from, like Maine or something, wherever he came from? So I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was cool. It was good to see him out there. On the flip side, Selman Bridges didn't play much, and this is a guy who they were, I think, making a very concerted effort to make a starting corner throughout all of spring and early in fall camp, and that just kind of really fell off there. It looks like he might be CB5 at this point. And then Quintavious Scandrett is just a guy that I was really excited about coming out of the portal. I thought we would see more of him than we did. And what he played, like 10, 12 snaps or something, wasn't even out there that much. I remember seeing Caleb Wooten out there. He was the one who he didn't get the interception. Like, the ball clearly hit the ground, but then he got up and he was like, take it, review it, which was pretty funny. But that's the one thing I remembered about him. But yeah, with the corners, it was interesting. And yeah, it's like varying snaps, varying amounts of being tested or anything. But you named your 2 starters in Neal and Kenai Walker, and then your 2 primary backups in Jaheim Singletary and Keyshawn Davila, both graded higher, with their coverage grades by the end of the game. I don't know that that's 100% settled there. Maybe it is, but I do think it's going to be next week against Arkansas State, and then certainly the following week against Ole Miss, where we really, really figure out exactly what we're looking at with Arkansas secondary, particularly the corners there. You have anything else you want to say about that before we move on to the funnest part of the show?
No, I was really just, is the funnest part of the show special teams?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I just was making sure we were on the same page there. The only thing I'll say is that, again, I feel like consistently through camp and now after one game, we've been very hard on the D-line and we've been very hard on the cornerback position specifically. And that's kind of where we're at with these overall grades for the game. I will say, for anybody that's upset about that, which, if you guys feel differently, that's perfectly fine. Like, I look forward to hearing comments. Like, if you guys, I liked hearing your guys' grades as well, of like, hey, I actually thought the O-line did this and I thought the D-line did this. I'm all for that. We welcome all that.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, like you mentioned, Ole Miss and Arkansas State, 2 teams that are going to try and air the thing out against Arkansas. I'm sure they are going to see some things from this Alabama A&M game and say, oh, we can maybe go at Julian Neal a little bit. Oh, they're going to play Jaheim Singletary? We can go at him a little bit. I think it's going to be a time for Arkansas to be tested. And by the way, go out there and prove us wrong. Like, we are begging it to happen. If people think we don't want these position groups to shore themselves up and prove us wrong, like, you are absolutely wrong. And I think there's some nice opportunities. If Arkansas clamps up Jalen Raynor, who is an actually dynamic quarterback, I remember betting on him last year. He's kind of electric, honestly. If Arkansas clamps him up after the way he threw the ball around the other day, and if they shut down Austin Simmons and Oxford, I promise you, we will stop having questions about the secondary, or we will definitely give them some respect. I have zero issue with that. And if all of a sudden we're seeing them get in the backfield consistently from the D-line, like, we will gladly adjust. But going into these 2 games where they are going to be tested, I am pretty solidly concerned about those 2 spots.
Yeah, me too, man. All right, wrapping things up for today here on the Postgame Report Card. We'll move on to special teams. Famously, a third of the game. It's the third phase of the game, whatever. I'm just a little bit torn here. Here's the beauty of it. They didn't do anything stupid in terms of, somebody running into the guy trying to catch the punt, or some of those, we don't have enough guys lined up on the field. You didn't get a punt blocked. Some of those things that have plagued Arkansas in their openers in the past, are really just period throughout the last several years. You avoided that. That automatically makes me happy. The inadvertent squib kick there off of the Alabama A&M defender, that was hilarious. I wanted more, expected more. Everybody knows my bold prediction was that Cam Shanks was going to house a punt. Looked a little bit uneasy back there. Hey, whatever. Maybe shaking off some rust. You missed some time in camp. First live bullets at you. I'm not super concerned about it. I just thought that there was an opportunity there that they weren't able to take advantage of. Didn't matter. You won by 45 anyway. Scott Starzik, love it, man. Come in there. First kick as a college freshman, 53 yards. You nail it. That's got to give you a lot of confidence moving forward. I'm so glad that he got that opportunity and took advantage of it. That's great. Devin Bell exists. You absolutely love that guy. What a B plus, like I don't have any bad things to say about him. I'm irritated by the punt return thing when you had like 4 opportunities and you got nothing out of it, but you didn't muff a punt. You didn't fumble anything. You didn't do anything stupid. It didn't hurt you. So I'm going to give you a pass here in game 1.
I'm also going to give him a pass, Curtis. So much so, call me crazy, I'm giving Arkansas a solid A on special teams. Not an A plus. It's not the best part of the game. You mentioned Cam Shanks and his overeager mentality back there as a punt returner. But honestly, Curtis, if I had told you on Friday, I said, hey, we're going to come out of this first game, and the biggest issue on special teams is that your All-American punt returner was a little too aggressive. And even in being aggressive, it's not like he muffed a punt. It's not like he put the ball around. Now he did. Now the first one they kicked to him where the guy's standing there and he catches it and gets obliterated, that one pissed me off more than anything. I went back and watched the one that was like bouncing towards him and he catches it on a hop, which always makes me nervous. And you catch it on a hop to get 2 yards. I hate that. I don't like when they do that. But at the same time, it's like I would rather that than let the ball bounce 12 more yards and you get
instantaneous special. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, dude, I really do, and I'm kind of like being a little bit facetious, but not really. I do think there's something to putting pressure on punting units, and teams that play Arkansas are going to know, hey, this guy is not a fair catch guy. Like he is going to return the ball. You have to kind of be prepared down there. He's going to catch it. He's going to return it. You kind of have to force teams to prepare. We didn't see that factor show up in this game, but outside of him, which again is the one area of concern, kickoff return. Arkansas only returned, I believe, 2. Both of them got out past the 25. I thought Rodney Hill did a fine job. He didn't break one crazy. It's not like they kicked him super deep, but he got out past the 25 multiple times. Like, that's a win for me. I thought Arkansas's kickoff unit was very good. Ball went into the end zone a few times. When it didn't go into the end zone, they tackled them ahead of the 25. In fact, I think they got him inside the 20 one of those times. So that's good coverage there on the kickoff unit. Devin Bale had 3 punts. 2 of them went inside the 20. I think one of them went inside the 5. That's a solid one for me. And Scott Starzik, the MVP of the game. Nobody did his job more effectively and more decisively than Scott Starzik, who has 1 career field goal attempt and it's a bomb. I came away like kind of impressed with Arkansas special teams units. I got to be honest.
I just think that if I give them an A now, that's the bar. You know what I mean? But and then on the flip side, I think back about what you said about linebacker earlier, where I think you gave him a C plus or whatever, and you're like, well, that's because my expectations are so high. Like they could be so much better. And so then I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, I probably should have gone a little bit lower from that standpoint because he's right. If that's a B and they were just kind of existing out there, there's going to be better performances where I'm going to be compelled to give them a B, and it's going to be like, oh, so that was the same as the Alabama A&M. It's one of those things that you're always trying to weigh there. You know what I mean? So
that's a good point in terms of the setting the standard. I do want to ask you to clarify. If I give, because we give our 1 A plus to a position group.
Yeah.
Can I give the quarterbacks an A plus and then special teams an A plus? Are they separate?
Sure. Yeah. I think we're within our rights to do whatever the hell we want.
Now that is firmly true. But I just want to clarify, like they could be better. They could get an A plus. They could house something or something like that. Maybe I could be talked into A minus.
I don't want you to bring down your listen. I don't need Papa No coming at me because I talked you down on the.
I'm still rolling with A. I'm still rolling with A, but I just am letting it be known. I'm giving myself that backup. It's like when you're betting a game and you're announcing your pick for a game and you're like, yeah, I've got Arkansas here, but like Arkansas State could win. Just to kind of give yourself that cushion. That's
exactly.
What I'm doing.
Yeah, you might go 4-8 this season. Could go 8-4. Yeah, you never know. So
people are saying.
All right, man. Good stuff today. Any final thoughts before we roll out of here on this beautiful Sunday morning?
My final thoughts are woo damn pig. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And aren't y'all just blessed to have true football guys like me and Curtis? And I alluded to this last week that like people always are like, oh, you're the basketball guy and the baseball guy. When are people going to notice that we cover a lot of football? Like we talk football a good bit. Hell, this is our like 5th piece of content on this one FCS opponent in the last 36 hours. Like, I mean, this is a lot of football coverage, but seriously, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like I said, leave us your comments of maybe your grades. You can tell us what we got wrong, tell us what we got right, or just kind of give your own. Like, I like hearing from you guys of like how the fan base felt about certain position groups, and we welcome all that. And so I appreciate you guys for watching. Tune in with us Inside Arkansas Live. We're going to be talking football all week. So appreciate everybody, and woo damn pig as always.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And I'll echo what you said. Yeah, throw it in the comments, because one thing I was talking to my wife about this after we wrapped up everything last night is I've never felt more of almost like a house divided than I did during our post-game show last night. There were some people that were like, hey, they did what they were supposed to do, worked out some kinks after the first few drives, looked great. I'm super pumped. I feel better about it. And then there's this whole other segment that was like, oh no, 3-9, bro. Like this is rough. Oh no, the defense is going to get this. This is terrible, man. Oh, the running backs suck. And there's just not as much middle ground as I thought there would be. And that's kind of where we live, which is frankly where I think that you should live this early in the season, where you're still trying to figure out exactly where your team is at. So I'll be very interested to see kind of the variation between the comments on the people who are putting their grades in there with us. So yes, I encourage you to do that. And I'm looking forward to checking them out, and appreciate everybody, like Andrew said, for tuning in, rocking with us. And make sure you subscribe. That way you're aware of all the things we got going on. Inside Arkansas YouTube channel is the best way to do it. Turn on those notifications. That way, anytime we go live or post a new video, you will be made aware. And find us where you find your audio podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, anywhere that you listen. The Inside Arkansas Football Show can be found there. So for Andrew Ellis, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas, and we will see you guys when we see you. Y'all have a good one.